Welcome back to Your Best Year 2026, an online retreat delivered by Coaching Minds. And we're joined now in our final coaching session of the day with the wonderful and fantastic Ed Stanley. I'm going to introduce you to Ed in just a moment. But Ed, thank you so much for your time, for being here. I really appreciate it and looking forward to what you've got in store for us in terms of values.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Excellent. So if you are tuned in, please say hi. I hope you're refreshed. I hope that you've taken a lunch, you've got your snacks, you've got whatever ready to get into values. Jane delivered us such a fantastic session that took us deep to think about our mindset, our stories, and where our mindset was from last year and how we can reauthor that to bring us into 2026. And this followed on from a beautiful session that we had with Donna, Patricia, and Adele, where we discussed our definition of success and what to think about when we're creating goals. And in both of those sessions, values were mentioned as one of the key and most important drivers behind everything that we're doing. And we're here with Ed Stanley, who is a leadership coach, and you do a lot of work on values as well, Ed, based over in Ireland. And it's wonderful to have you, Ed. Thank you for being here. I don't know if you want to give a little bit of introduction about yourself before we dive into today's topic.
Sure, Paul. Thank you for having me, first of all. And I know we have a global audience, so good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. So it's great to be able to say that. So really, really excited about the next 45, 60 minutes talking through our values. It's a really important topic for me. It's where my coaching starts. It's in the middle of my coaching and it's at the end of my coaching. So a little bit about who I am. People may know me from if we have Coaching Mind coaches here or coachees. My name is Ed. I'm based out of Dublin, Ireland. I'm coaching now probably about 3 or 4 years. I have my own practice and I mainly work with people who are entering leadership for the first time, or I work a lot with graduates. So I work in a university also with graduates, helping them with their careers and employability aspirations. So that's what I do as an individual. But then outside of my professional life, I'm a father. I have a 4-year-old daughter. I have a little French bulldog who's 5-year-old. And I keep saying this running joke every time I do a workshop, but I don't know which one is harder work. The little one seems to be able to move on, but the little fella always wants me around. So that's just a little bit who I am. My wife, her name is Rebecca. She's originally from Brazil. So I like to share a little bit about who I am because at the end of the day, we're all humans. And when we connect to what our highest values are, which I'll talk about today, and one of my highest values is family. So I think we had some great discussions this morning, either on the panel or Jane, where powerful words came up or powerful conversations about what success, etc., looks like. So today I really want us to talk through what your values look like, because for me, they help us to stay grounded. And they also help us, and you'll probably hear me saying this a lot, but they also help us with our decisions, our actions, and our perceptions. Okay, they're the things that we can control, and our values usually allow us to anchor within those. So yeah, Paul, that's a little bit of who I am, what to expect, and just really looking forward, as I said, to the next 55, 60 minutes. People who know me, I really love engagement. So, I will go through a small PowerPoint presentation. We'll go through the workbooks themselves and I'll ask a lot of reflective questions, but I love bouncing and I love the energy off the room. So, I know this topic of values can be quite personal. So whatever you're comfortable, I invite you to share. But again, this doesn't need to be shared, but whatever you want to ask in this session, I'd love to hear and I'd be more than happy to answer. I know, Paul, you're going to keep an eye on the questions that come in. So interrupt me at any stage. I'm more than happy to jump in and answer those.
No, brilliant. And we actually have a lot of people tuned in who's saying hi. So Donna's saying hi, Cindy's saying hi, Jane's saying hi, and Adele is saying hello. So please do engage with Ed. And many of you, Ed, one thing you missed off there, many of you have probably seen Ed on our coach cast. So he's one of our hosts of our podcast as well. So you're probably familiar with his face and the way in which he do things. He's really engaging. So Ed, over to you. I'm really excited. Just tell me when you want me to skip through your slides and
yeah, for sure. So if you just want to move on, I'll just share a little bit of a background into what we're talking about. So as I opened up, it's kind of a follow on from what Jane talked about. And I loved Jane's session around your fixed and your growth mindset. And I really love the conversation around positive mindsets as well, because they're not the same thing. Okay. And you mentioned that, Paul, and, we're not here about coaches aren't all Pollyanna positivity either. We're bringing a reality and an intention to the conversation to look at what are those opportunities. Okay. And, if we look through history, a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of inventions were actually created during times of trouble, during times of economic recessions, etc., etc. And to me, that's what real growth mindset is looking for those opportunities, but not necessarily in a positive environment. Okay, so just keep that in mind, and that's what I love when we walk through the value set. But before we kind of dive in and talk about values themselves, if I just ask you to move on to the next slide there, Paul, I just want to give a bit of an introduction to what that means. So I'm really about the clarity and systems before the goals. And what I mean by that is I don't want to be disingenuous to goals, because I think goals are super important, but I also think we need systems in place for them goals to be achieved. I sometimes feel that goals, there's a lot of weight put onto that particular word. And, Paul, I love the way you brought in at the very beginning that even though we're doing this at the start of January, there's no day, month, or year when you should start something or step into something. One question I love to ask myself at the end of each day or the start of each morning is, what did I learn yesterday that I didn't know and that I can bring into today? Because we're always evolving as people. And that's where, we talk about that self-development piece and self-compassion piece. So before we kind of talk about goals or plans or what 2026 should look like, and should I highlight it because it doesn't necessarily, again, need to put that pressure on it. It's about what is right for you and how you step into that. But with that said, I do want us to slow down for a moment, and I do want to pat ourselves on the back for growing up today, because that's the probably the biggest step that you've made, or even connecting to this video at a later date, is that you're intentionally putting yourself in that space to learn and to grow and to challenge yourself. So, if you take nothing else away from today, take that you showed up, right? So we really need to start celebrating those moments for ourselves as well. And just to be clear, that this session won't be about, doing more or fixing anything, because you don't need to be fixed. This will just be hopefully an informational session to allow you, to help you, to guide and, reflect on your values and see where they are, and maybe challenge some of your own perceptions, and to help yourself to grow and develop. So for me, and again, I think Patricia mentioned it, Jane mentioned it a couple of times, it's around clarity. So I'm a big advocate for the word clarity. If people know me, I've created a clarity framework. And if you just allow me just for one moment, just to step into that, just to give you an idea of what the clarity framework looks like for me. It's something that over my 25 years working in kind of the tech industry and nonprofits, and now in university working with graduates. And I've been coached and been mentored for the last 15 years as I'm a coach and mentor to other people as well. But to me, these are the things that resonated with me as we went through it. So the clarity framework, I just kind of separated each letter to a meaning. So the C will be to connect to your values, and hopefully today we will go through some of that. The L is just to listen to your inner dialogue. So really powerful what Jane was talking about, the old stories that you tell yourself. And I've done a session here with Coaching Minds before in relation to your inner critic and your inner coach. So you may be able to go back and review that. But it's about not, and Paul, you mentioned this as well about that, the positivity environment, but it's not about always looking at the positive things in life. And I've said this a few times, it's about more so looking at the balance. Okay. So your inner critic isn't there to destroy you. It's there to protect you. And your inner coach is there to celebrate and to help you to move forward with that growth mindset. But we need that to be a balance, because there is times when we really do need to listen to our inner critic as well. So keep that in mind, that everything isn't just about let's look at growing and looking at the positive side of it, or looking at the areas that we need to develop. Sometimes your inner critic is also there to help and guide you as well. A is to acknowledge your strengths. So working and living within Ireland, one of the things we're great at is talking about the things we're not good at, or the weaknesses. I don't like that word, but our development areas. But as time goes on, we need to also recognize our strengths because, again, back to the word balance, it helps us balance things out. Or is to reframe your limiting beliefs. And Jane talked a lot about this, the old stories you tell yourselves, the old data. Is that actually true today? You know, as human beings, we evolve every single minute, every single hour, and every single day. So something that was what we perceive to be ourselves maybe 5, 6, 7 months, years ago, maybe that's not who we are today. So we really need to step into that and look at the facts. And then I is to identify the next best steps. And sometimes we need a bit of support with that. And as a coach, some of the language that I hear back from coaches that helps me to be reassured that I'm, hopefully supporting them in the right way and ethically is that they say that I hold a mirror up for them. And that's all that coaching and mentoring for me is really about is everyone has the answers to their own kind of personal situations. It's just about creating that safe space and allowing them to reflect. T is to take action, and then Y is to just be yourself. Okay, there's only one of you. I know it's a bit cringy, but there is only one of us. So let's be authentic, but also let's lean into our self compassion as we move through this world. So Paul, I'm just going to stop there because it's just an opening paragraph. I just want to see is there anything bouncing back that I can reply to, or if you have any questions or anything that you would like to share. I'm not sure if I can hear you. You're on mute, Paul.
Can you hear me now?
I can, yeah.
Apologies, sorry, my mic died. It's been one of those days for technology, just like this.
It's good.
So,
We go with the flow. Everything's happening today, right? So
and
we're
I was
learning.
giving such a compliment there, Ed, as well. Maybe you weren't supposed to hear it, but now I was just saying how amazing your inner critic, inner coach session was at our global summit. There's not a lot of comments coming through. There is one thing I just want to address. So Donna's asking about the link that was shared before this session, but it's linked to Jane's workbook. So all the sessions are in the same workbook. It's one workbook for all the sessions. So if you just scroll a few pages down, you will find Ed's exercise that we're going to work through today. But no, Ed, thank you for sharing that, and I really resonate with everything that you've been sharing there. But I don't want to take up too much of your time, so I'm going to hand it back
Yeah,
over to
no, you're
you.
good. Excellent. Okay, so if we bounce on to the next slide, just talk a little bit around why our values are our foundational filter, and then we can move on to the next one as well, Paul. So this again, we talked a little bit this morning about success. What does lasting success? And I loved one of the comments about can we use a different word to success? That really resonated as well. And it's about alignment for me or purpose. So there's many words, but I'm also appreciative that people use words to help them to be able to move forward sometimes with their actions. So great that that question was posed, because it helps us all to think and reflect as well. But what does lasting success and being authentic and happiness built into our goals alone? And they're built on clarity. So I talked a little bit around the clarity piece, but few things I want to kind of talk about here is just because lasting success and real fulfillment don't just come from better goals alone. They really come from knowing what actually matters to you as an individual. And people again that know me know that I love to read, and I've recently reread James Clear's Atomic Habits. So if you allow me, I just want to share two of his quotes that really resonate with me and have really helped me to shape my kind of one word going into 2026, which I'll ask you for later on as well. But, James Clear talks really about if you want better results, then forget about setting goals, focus on your systems instead. So I would say don't get too hung up on the language about forget about setting goals, because goals are important. It's about the whole kind of overarching view of what he's mentioning is about having those systems in place. And he went on to say, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And I really do believe in that. So over the last 2 years, I've consciously and consistently worked on my social media presence, but just even showing up authentically. Somebody else mentioned about looking at social media and seeing all these great coaches talking about, 20, 30K months. I don't even think I do that in a year. So, I'm not in coaching for that 20, 30K a month I'm in it because I want to make a difference. I want to make an impact. And I really love working with graduates who are coming through because they teach me a lot as much as hopefully I can share with them. So I want us to stay grounded as we go through kind of the values workshop itself. But before that, maybe if I ask, and before we kind of move into the reflective piece, is just to ground ourselves. Because, we have busy lives. We've gone through a panel session, then we went through Jane's session, and now we're coming through my session. So sometimes we don't give ourselves that time to kind of leave the previous space and step into the new space. So, if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. If you're not comfortable, keep your eyes open. And again, if this is something that you don't want to participate in, then that's fine. Just, you can disconnect for those 10, 15 seconds as we go through it. But just want to kind of bring us and ground us. So I'd love us if we, are comfortable, that we have both our feet on the ground, either if you're sitting or you're standing. I'd love you to just to take a slow breath in, nice and slowly. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, and then breathe out. And as you breathe out, let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw soften. You don't need to be anyone else here. You don't need to have any answers yet. I just want you to arrive as you are. Okay. So I hope we're now grounded and we're ready to move into our next phase of what today will hold. So, Paul, if you just want to move on to the next slide, unless there's any questions, I'm more than happy to step in, but maybe not.
No, we're quite quiet at the moment. I'm sure lots of stuff will come through as we get into the exercise.
Sure.
But
Yeah, once we get into the workbooks, we should have a bit of engagement, hopefully. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, back to values are not what we say matters. Sorry, values are not what we say matters. They guide our decisions when it costs us, and they move us from reacting to choosing with intention. So, a little bit around what I'm kind of mentioning here is that we often think values are things we talk about, or words we put on a website, or words on a wall in an organization, or it's words that we care about. But for me, values show up most clearly when it costs us something, or when we have to make a decision or an action, or our perception is challenged. And I love the work from, if you're familiar with him, but Dr. John Demartini. I referenced him at the very beginning. He's a neuroscientist. He does a lot of work around mainly your values, but he does other work as well. And he says what we have control over and how we shape our values is through our actions, through our decisions, and through our perceptions. So I will mention that a few times as we go through, because anyway, for me, that landed so powerfully a couple of years ago when I heard it, because this is what we can control. So they guide, our values really guide the decisions we make when no one is watching. So that's what we talk about when people talk about integrity. When we're tired, right? That's a big one. So when we're really fatigued, or we don't have any energy and we're drained, big part of our values, or we can be grounded with our values in those moments. And when we're under pressure, right? These are really when our values will start to show up, or how we can ground ourselves back into our values. When our values are clear, our decisions feel clearer, and when they're unclear, we tend to react. So let's look at how clarity changes how we move through life. So really want us to step into this exercise where I will ask you a number of reflective questions. Again, I know this is personal, so if people prefer not to share, that is totally fine. If people are happy to share, then I'd love that, so we can bounce off each other. I will share some stories as I go through this workshop as well. But Paul, if we move on to the next slide, I think it just prepares us forward. Okay, I have one quote there just before we move on. There is nothing to get right here. And I think Jane mentioned that as well. There's no right or wrong in how you kind of assess your values or move through your values. It's only something to notice. And then when you notice it, you have the opportunity to take action, right? So brilliant. So yeah, we're going to move into the guided exercise. There's 3 questions that on the next slide that I just want you to kind of reflect on as we go through it. You don't need to answer them right now, but there will be questions that I ask as we go through the workbook. But the first one is, what truly matters to me right now? The next question is, where am I living in alignment? And then your final question is, what feels non-negotiable as I step into 2026? So they're kind of the overarching questions that will guide us through the next 30 minutes or so of kind of a reflective practice on some questions that we have. So we have our workbook there, right? Everyone has that link now, Paul, right?
Yeah, so it was posted at the beginning, so it should be pinned. If not, I'll put it in again so you have access if
Okay.
you're tuning in a little bit late. But you will need to download the notebook for it to be editable. Or if you
Yeah.
feel comfortable sharing in the comments box, you want to type it in the comments box, you're more than welcome as well. If you feel safe, as Ed mentioned.
Yeah. Or if anybody's like me, old school, pen and paper. I carry a pen and a notebook everywhere I go and take notes. So if I was doing Jane's exercise, and I generally do it on pen and paper, just for me, it helps me to absorb it. There we go. Right. So similar minds. Okay. So yeah, whatever you're comfortable with, I'm going to really talk about our work to our values. But again, I want us to be sure that there's no right answers. We don't need, impressive answers here. It's really about what really resonates for you. You don't need to write full sentences either. Capture what you capture. They can be words, they can be phrases. Some people I've worked with are super creative that they like to draw pictures, and that really kind of leans into where they're at. But just to be yourself during the course of the next kind of 20 to 25 minutes. Okay, so if you have the workbook opened, I'm just going to open myself so I can follow along with everybody. The first part of it is clarifying our core values. Just make sure I'm on the right page. We are.
Would you like me to pop it on the screen, Ed, as well? I can pop the workbook on the screen as well if that would be helpful.
Whatever works easier for you, Paul. If it's taking you away from it, it's
No,
okay. I have it here myself.
it's your session. It's whatever you're comfortable
Yeah.
with. Ed.
Well, yeah. Let's pop it up there. It might be easier for us to work through it that way then.
Yep. Let's see how this presents. But please continue, and I'll start to pop it up. I just need to do a little bit here.
Of course. So we're going to look at alignment and misalignment. And we're going to take some time in quiet space as well to reflect on this, because our values are, as I said, are very internal and very much about how we see ourselves, again, how we see our actions, our decisions, and our perception. So we often discover our values by noticing when they're being honored and when they're being compromised. That's how I actually notice them, and how I need to go back and anchor and be grounded. So with this particular one, I'm just going to set the scene. I'd like you to maybe think of some of these situations within the last 12 or 24 months. Okay. But again, it's just an invitation to use that time frame. If you want to use your own time frame, that's fine. Okay. So what I want us to look at, the first question is that moment of alignment. So when you felt energized, grounded, or fulfilled. And I'd love you to start writing out either phrases, sentences of what that actually looked like for you. And again, if you're comfortable sharing online, then Paul can share some of those back with me. But just take a moment to really step into that and think about it, either from the last 12 or 24 months. When you felt energized, grounded, or fulfilled, what did that look like? And I know we talked a little bit about this morning, and Jane brought up a valuable point, is that this isn't just about, leadership, about your career, about relationships. This is everything. This is your personal and professional. So, these sessions aren't just targeted to one area, one niche. This is about when were you felt energized, and that can literally be in your career. It could be with your family. It could be with your father. It could be whatever the situation is. So just bear that in mind, that this is very much open to your interpretation. So
Brilliant.
maybe I'll ask you, Paul, why we have that space. Maybe we can bounce off each other. Is there anything you can kind of share with us or reflect on when you felt energized or grounded or fulfilled within the last 12, 24 months?
In the last 12, 24 months, with everything we do at Coaching Minds, to be fair, I'm trying to think of specific moments. I love delivering sessions like this, our summit. It really makes me feel energized, the engagement that we get from individuals. And equally on a personal level, just taking those moments of peace. I spend a lot of my time over in Colombia, just being out in nature, just taking that break with a book and a coffee. That's all I need. I have a book and a coffee, some space and a nice scene to look at. That really makes me feel energized as well. So a mix of things.
And you're really capturing the mind, body, and soul there, right? And I'm quite similar. When I feel energized, there's multiple times when I'm around my daughter every day, and things that she does really puts a different perspective on things since I became a father 4 years ago. Um, I really enjoy the work that I do professionally, and I love my coaching and I love giving back. So I love to mentor. So these are all the things that keep me energized and grounded. I love to volunteer. But the one thing that I love also is my own space and my own time. That doesn't mean that I want to disconnect from people. It just means that I recognize, I've only recognized over the last maybe 5 or 6 years, for me to top up my energy, I do need that space to decompress. And how I decompress is by having a coffee and reading a book, which might sound very boring to other people. And some people like to go out and party and, like to go doing adventures or do huge walks. And that's great. I enjoy elements of that. But I just love nothing better than spending 35, 40 minutes each morning to set my day up, having a coffee and reading a couple of pages of a book. It just energizes me. And that's what we love about human beings, about being experts of ourselves, right? Because everyone has different ways of energizing. So,
And it comes to
okay,
that
I'm not
introversion,
sure if anything's coming
extroversion as
through.
well. Sorry, I was just saying it goes back to that introversion and extroversion as well. And there is
Correct.
a few things coming through as well. So Donna's saying helping others has always energized and fulfilled you. And Cindy's saying connecting with others, family, friends, work, networking, and energized from listening to loud music.
Great. All similar teams as individuals that we're seeing here today, but as we said, everyone is very different. Different things will energize different people. And some people like that chaotic environment as well. That can be what energizes them, right? So, again, it's a non judgmental space. Okay, so if we want to move on to the second one to reflect on, and Paul, again, if you allow me to use yourself, maybe as we can have a conversation while other people are either sharing or not sharing, but or writing down their again, I'll always talk about the balance. So the balance of the moment of alignment when we're energized, there's also going to be moments of misalignment when we feel drained, frustrated, or out of sync. So again, if you allow me and I invite you to look at or reflect that from the last 12 to 24 months, is there anything in there that you're comfortable and happy to share with the audience about what you felt was a drain or frustration?
Yeah. I'm trying to think of non-personal things to feed into here. Ted. There's a few
Yeah,
personal
you're
things
fine.
of
Take your
my
time.
my life that is quite energy driven. I'm not
Mhm.
going to talk about now today, but I think in terms of
Yeah.
when you look at career and work, I think a lot of prep work and admin. I don't know if you feel the same at times. Can be quite draining. It's great to get on the stage here, speak with you. This is really energizing to listen to the sessions, but sometimes the pre-work and the work afterwards can be quite draining. So we've got to be careful energies to get ready. So it's just one example that I can think of. Yeah.
And that's completely fair. Again, we go back to that balance. We love what we do here, but there is things behind the scenes that can become very frustrating and very draining. But we have to recognize that that is part of the process as well.
It
It's
is.
not always going to be 100% enjoyment. So, and that's what when I do mentor people, is to recognize that when people say, "Oh, I'm, I want my dream job," but your dream job, amazing. But there will be elements of that that won't be the dream, right? And how do we balance that out? I suppose if you allow me, I'm just going to share a little bit for me. And for me, it's probably been just the world in itself over the last 12, 24 months has been very draining. And I've consciously and intentionally made sure that I not neglected or looked away because I didn't, but made sure that I wasn't following social media channels that were just constantly putting out negative news because that can really impact you as an individual. I was had a tendency maybe a few years ago to wake up and first thing to do is look on the website for news to see what was happening. And, I still watch the news. I watch the news every day, the 6 o'clock news here in Ireland, but that's about it. I do that in the newspapers. And then the rest of the day, I allow my energies to be topped up with the things that I enjoy. So I won't lie, I've found the last 12, 24 months with everything that's happening in the world quite draining and quite frustrating at times. So I've been intentional about what I allow my mind to absorb, right? And it's not about, you know, burying my head in the sand because that's not what it's about. I understand that there's a lot happening in the world and I support and help where I can, but I won't spend 7 hours a day consuming negative kind of news or narratives, etc., etc. So just sharing a little bit because it's out of sync of who I want to be in an alignment as well. So
Yeah,
I'm
no, I
not
can
sure if anyone
resonate.
else is sharing.
So a couple of things coming through. So Donna's sharing here, too much noise, negativity, and rudeness.
Yes,
And we've got a couple
I
of
can
delayed
relate to that.
comments coming through on the positive side, moment of alignment. So Jane's
Yeah,
sharing, speaking at events, spending time with my daughter, listen to music.
music
This
is
is
a great
Cindy,
one.
and then Cindy saying, get drained from negativity.
Yeah, but again, it's a balance, right? We, as I said just there, we need to make sure that we're absorbing what we need to absorb, and then the rest. Just move away from it if it isn't adding value. Excuse me, if it isn't adding value to your day. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And I resonate with what you're saying there about the news. It can sometimes if we consume too much, it leaves us feeling helpless, feeling that we can't do anything. So I really love how you mentioned it's not about burying our head in the sand. It's about looking at what we can control. Keeping aware of the news around the world, but also looking at what we can
Correct.
do things about it, not spending too much energy there. Brilliant.
Yeah. Just consume what we feel is the right amount to consume, and then consume other things, whatever that is, books, family, nature. And that's where we talk about your highest values then as well. So,
Mm.
okay. So let's move on to step 3, I believe. Okay, sorry. So we had 2 questions there. What mattered in that moment and what felt compromised or missing? So they're just things to reflect on based on your alignment and misalignment words that you may have, phrases that you may have captured. So today we won't go through every single question. This workbook is also what Paul mentioned is it's there for you to tap into whenever you need, right? And it could be that you're doing this in September. As I said, I don't believe that goals start at a particular day, like a Monday, or start on the 1st of January. They start with a system. They start them with taking action. They start with you wanting that to change, right? So when you step back into this workbook, it just give you that opportunity then to really delve into those questions a little bit further. But for the purpose of today, because we have 60 minutes, I kind of want us just to get into what values look like. So then you can start mapping some of this out on by yourself using your own self-reflection. So the next section we'll talk about is really identifying those values, and values often repeat themselves. So we kind of want to look at some of those patterns. So 2 questions that I'd love us to reflect on now. And the first question is, when I feel at my best, I'm honoring the value of, and fill in the gap. And again, Paul, I will invite you, but don't feel like you need to step into this. It's just as we're
And
bouncing
yeah,
off each other. I'll share my one because I'm comfortable in sharing. But if you have any initial thoughts, I'd love to hear.
yeah, no. So for me, in service, when I feel like I'm giving to people, when I make a difference to people, when I see other people, gain energy from the conversations that I'm having, from the way I'm connecting with them, I think I really feel at my best when I'm serving others.
Yeah, I love that. So quite similar to me. It's when I'm making impact, but not impact on what we kind of talked about earlier about productivity. It's not about the productivity piece. It's more about the impact on that individual, seeing them grow or develop, or seeing them not understand isn't the right word, but seeing them really reflecting on maybe the safe space that we've brought together for them to see some of the great things that they are doing and able and capable of doing. And then seeing that kind of encouragement in them and motivation then to start kind of moving forward. But very much similar to you, Paul, when it comes to I love I just love to help people. Like I have this servant leadership where, and I sometimes when I mention that, people get confused as that, oh, does that mean that you just say yes to everything? And it's like, actually, no, it's not that at all. It's about helping people to grow and develop, but I have clear boundaries of how that actually is. It's not about me saying yes to everything that you ask or saying yes to all your requests. It's giving myself permission to push back and say no as well. So I love the way you brought up that serving piece because that's a big part of who I am and what I do. And I think that's a big part of a lot of our coaches at Coaching Minds is why our community is so vibrant around we want to make an impact. And a lot of those words I've heard already in the last two sessions is that we're here to really help people to grow and develop because people have helped us grow and develop and still helping us to grow and develop. So it's about having that community around us. So,
Exactly.
okay.
A couple of things coming in from the comments as well, Ed. So Donna saying community, joy, family, service and values, I honour and prioritise.
Yeah. I love the word joy. It's so simple, but there's so much to it. I remember the first time I read one of my most powerful books, and I've shared this with you, Paul, is The Energy Bus by John Gordon. And the lady in the bus that was driving her name was Joy. So I just resonates with me. Joy just brings a lot of positive affirmations to me. So I love that word.
Brilliant book as well.
Amazing book. And if people haven't picked it up, and it's an easy read. You read it over two lattes maybe. It's not that long. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can move on to the next one then. So when I feel drained or stuck, the value of is being ignored. So what is that?
It's a really interesting question, Ed. I like that.
So I'll just share probably something from my side first is that for me, when I'm really drained or people are asking a lot from me, I think the value that I ignore the most is self-compassion because I feel like I need to do what they need to do. I need to hit deadlines. I need to do A, B, C, and D. And then you start asking the question, am I up for this? Am I good enough? And, all those kind of negative connotations come to mind. So I'm not valuing my self-compassion. I'm not valuing my boundaries. So I try to step more into that when those situations occur because as human beings, again, and from my experience, especially if you're working in high pressured roles, it can feel like that you don't have enough time in the day, and then you can blame yourself for that, not having that enough time when sometimes you just really need to be compassionate because we're very good at giving advice or reassurance to our friend, our partners, whoever, and because we love them. And something in one of our podcasts that Kamal mentioned that really just stuck with me and resonated with me was we need to love ourselves first. When he asked, like, who would you go to as a confidant, who would that person be? And everyone said, like, either in one of his workshops, either my partner, my wife, and he's like, would you not just go to yourself first? So we need to love ourselves first. So I just found that really powerful. And for me, that's where self-compassion will come back in for me.
No, wonderful. No, thank you for sharing that, Ed. And I think from my perspective, I'm trying to stick with because there's different values I can plug in there, but trying to stick with that value of service is being ignored. I think for me, it's at the point when people are kind of taking your service and what you're giving for granted and expecting more and asking for more and coming back for more and just it becomes draining to the point where I've given you so much, but maybe it's not enough and you're expecting more from me. That can lead me to feeling drained or stuck, I think.
Yeah. And again, it comes back to that word clarity. Have we got clarity around our boundaries? And we need to advocate for ourselves because we're very good for advocating for others. But we need to be able to then also advocate for ourselves, right?
Indeed, yeah. And
And
we've
our
got a few
values help
comments.
us in that.
Yeah. Apologies, Ed, sorry.
I was going to say, I was saying that when we have our values in place, they ground us and they help us and anchor those because then you start asking yourself those questions, right? So this is the purpose of really aligning your values with, you and what them highest values look like. So sorry, I did see Cindy pop up something there about respect. respect being ignored, is
Yeah,
it?
so
Yeah.
yeah, especially it's been a sense of self-worth. Donna's sharing grace for myself and information. How can I bridge that gap to help with clarity?
Yes.
And then Cindy saying, for example, when you say no or set a boundary and someone pushes the limit further.
Again, that's where we need to be really grounded in our values and what we believe in, and because that can happen in various situations, and we won't get into it today, but political, religious, whatever that may be. And so, very much about your integrity, if that's one of your values, being authentic, etc. So, amazing, right? Great. So, if you move on to, I won't say step four right now, because what I'd love us to do is list 5 or 7 values that resonate with you. And you may have done this exercise a number of times before, so it might come very easy to you. And again, it can be words, it can be phrases. And if you're that creative person, it can be a picture or whatever it may be. But I'd love you just to think of those 5 to 7 values just for today. And Paul, we have shared just as an aid, um, personal values words. But again, these are just aids. This may not necessarily resonate with you at all, and that's fine. We're not saying that this is what values look like, because values can be a statement, can be a word, can be a phrase, can be a paragraph, can be a story, whatever it may be. So just something to help us move along during the session, and for people that are maybe listening in, just to give them a bit of a guide. So take a couple of minutes to go through that if you need, or if you do already identified your 5 to 7 values, then just write them down, jot them down for us, and we can then review those and move on to the next one. One thing I use, and I'll share this with you here. It was actually Coach of Minds that sent me this across, so a very thoughtful message. I had other elements of this, but I use these a lot, which is the career values coaching cards. And one of the main ones that I use is balance, because that's kind of one of my words. So I just love these, because when you're doing workshops, it gives you a bit more content to the word as well. But when you're doing workshops, I love hearing what other people kind of perceptions of values are, and I've just learned so much over the years with that. But yeah, love to see if you want to share any values that you kind of guide yourself with, Paul, or
Yeah, no, so we've already covered service as being one of mine. I think peace is a big one. But I think service comes with making a difference as well. I don't. It's not just about service. It's actually I want to feel like I'm making a difference. If I'm not, I need to readjust myself and look where I'm not making. But how can I change what I'm doing? But peace is a big one. I try not to lose my peace within myself. The environment around us can be hectic, chaotic, manic, but I try to stay grounded the best I can. And freedom as well. I like to be free. I don't like to feel like I'm tied. And that was a big part of me when I first discovered values that helped me decide to leave my career that I had and make that transition into coaching and then building coaching mind. I didn't have that freedom within the organization. So just a couple of mine that I'm sharing there.
yeah, similar, Paul. I do have like a set of values that I kind of lean into, and I do have a word each year that I use as a grounding technique. But the values that I kind of lean into a lot is being authentic. So I really want to make sure that I'm staying true to who I am. And sometimes I'll miss opportunities because I am authentic, and maybe I don't step into A, B, or C. But that then brings me to integrity. I really want to make sure that I'm, intentionally doing the right thing. Sometimes unintentionally, I might say the wrong thing, but that's a human as well, right? It's about learning and growing. And when somebody then educates me and creates that awareness from me, then I can take that forward. Okay. So these are the 2 big ones for me, but then the other ones are fun. So it may not come across, but I do have a sense of humor, and I do like to laugh about things, and I like to have a joke. And life can be too serious sometimes, and I like to just have moments where we can just kind of have fun in those situations. Humor then is another big part of my kind of values and my makeup. And then the big one is self compassion. And that's where kind of my journey started 10 or 12 years ago. because back to Kamal's, I didn't love myself. I was trying to serve other people, but I didn't know who I was or what I was. And I was probably running away from the best version of me because that meant that I had to actually step into that and take accountability, right? So 10 or 12 years ago, I had to step into self-compassion. Before that, I thought self-care and self-compassion was sitting in a bath with lights, which is a great way to unwind, but it's not necessarily the crux of what self-care looks like. Self-care now for me is my boundaries, allowing myself to say no, giving myself the permission to say yes or say no, etc., etc. So I wonder what other people are sharing, if they are sharing in the comments, because I know this piece can be a little bit personal. So I don't expect people to share if they don't want to.
There's lots of stuff coming in, Ed, so really great stuff. So just going on the boundaries there, I know we shared that from Cindy. So Stella sharing, that's very good topics to share in January. Ed, Stanley, well done. Thank you for being here, Stella. Great to see you. Good to see everybody who's tuning in and leaving comments. And Donna's saying joy, integrity, service, creativity, connection, relationships. So lots of good values that are being shared there. And I think it goes back to what you mentioned earlier on, Ed. There's no such thing as a good or bad value or right or wrong value. It's just what's important to us. And I think, and you might come onto this later, so I'm sorry if I'm jumping the gun here, but the reason why it's important for us to understand is because I really believe that our values are a bit of a magnet. And the values that we're putting out there, we're going to track the values we're putting out there. So going back to your word authentic, if we have authentic values, we're going to attract the right people towards us.
Correct. 100%.
Jane saying service, self-expression, integrity, contribution, freedom, and peace. Cindy's another one for humor, empathy, nurturing, empowerment.
These are all great, right? Great, powerful words. And you're right, Paul, what you mentioned there. I suppose that brings back to some of the work that I've done around Dr. John Demartini, who talks about our highest values and then our lowest values. And just to put it simply, our highest values are stuff that we get energized for, doesn't take too much effort. So if we're coaching, then that's one of our highest values. But then some of our lowest values are stuff that really takes a lot of effort for us to do. And a lot of the things that John Demartini would talk about is that when you recognize your lowest values, then that might be the opportunity to delegate some of that work. So I'll give you an example. If you have a business and you don't like accountancy because it just really frustrates you or you don't enjoy it and it takes up 20 hours a month trying to figure it out, then you should be really delegating that to somebody else, because you can then use that energy to step into your highest value, which is coaching or serving or helping people. So it's about recognizing that. Or, you know, if your highest value, which is mine, is in my family, is that a lot of the decisions, my actions and my perceptions have them in mind when I make my decision. So other people's highest value might be income, and that's perfectly fine, and their decisions may be very different to mine. So that's about recognizing where your highest and lowest values, so you can really maximize your energy and have that balance, right? Which, when I went through that exercise with Dr. John Demartini, it just really highlighted a lot of things to me, because there's a lot of things that I don't enjoy doing, that I maybe pig-headed go in and try and do it and waste hours and hours. So, you know, a couple of years ago, I put my hands up to my wife and said, you know, I actually don't like DIY and I make it worse and it causes more problems. So if something needs to be fixed, we'll go and get the professional to fix it, right? Because I'll end up probably costing more money. So that's just an example.
No, great. And I really resonate with this, and I'm going to use this word with caution because it creates a off-piece conversation. But I really love the power of AI right now that can help us with those low values to help us delegate that. But we'll leave that there because that's a whole new topic.
We need another 20 hours without maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so I presume people have kind of identified maybe some of their values. So I think the next slide is a couple of questions that I have around that. So maybe if you just move through.
Yeah. So you can go back in your own time and just have a look at these values. There's 2 pages there for you to sit.
And again, let's just put a caveat on it. They're not extensive. It's not an exhaustive list. And it's not even a list that you need to step into. It's just a guide, right? Because I know other people don't see values as a singular word, and I totally respect that as well. And for me, I do, because it just helps me to lean in quite quickly, and then I have context behind that and context behind it. So, okay, so which values would I protect even if it costs me? And the second question is, which values do I want my decisions to reflect in 2026. So if you've written down 5 or 7, I just want you to circle 1 or 3, between 1 and 3 of those values. So the ones that really stand out to you based on those 2 questions. And to me, it has happened to me. With the first question, which values would I protect even if it cost me, is integrity. I have had situations before where, I either worked for an organization or I worked as a contract in an organization, and ethically it just didn't sit with me as I kind of moved my way through the business, and really understood then that this wasn't the right place for me. And non-judgment to the organization, because they do things in a certain way, doesn't mean that I'm right and they're wrong, or I'm wrong and they're right. It just meant that for me it didn't sit with my value set or my understanding of what integrity was. So I would have had to step away from that, which would have cost me situations. And even maybe speaking opportunities, maybe just don't align certain ones with what I want to kind of project and put out into the world. And then there's maybe organizations that I wouldn't work for in a tech environment either, because of my own personal beliefs. So they're just some things I would share. And then, which values do I want my decisions to reflect in 2026? Is what we kind of talked about, is service, is freedom. And when I say freedom, I don't mean like financial freedom. A lot of people will talk about financial freedom. To me, is having the opportunity to be comfortable but doing the things that I want to do and enjoy doing. Doesn't mean having 10 million in the bank. It's about being able to have that freedom where I'm not constrained to, a 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, Monday to Friday. Okay, Paul, I'm not sure if you've seen anything or if you want to share anything in those.
Yes, I'll go to the comments. I'm just conscious of time, so I'll bring in some comments.
We're at the end nearly anyway as well. So
yeah, excellent. Yeah, no, I appreciate it. So Donna's saying protect joy, fun, relationships, integrity, and creativity. And then Rizan shared her values a bit earlier on as well: abundance, freedom, simplicity, honesty, success, and peace.
Loved them. Yeah. I love the word abundance. That came up a good bit in Jane's presentation as well. It's a powerful word.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we move on to kind of our last section, and we're doing good on time. We've about 10 minutes left, so we should be okay. Step 5 is this, where it gets challenging, and this is where I'll give you a bit of space. So for me, clarity grows through action, not perfection. Okay, so this value matters to me because, and we're selecting just one value for today. I'd also reframe this. This can be your one word. So I talked a little bit about the one word. I have a one word every year since actually 2017. I've stepped into the one word. It's a kind of a movement as well. There's a lot of different people that kind of get part in it. How I was introduced to was one of my favorite authors. His name is John Gordon. He wrote the One Word book, and he brought that into organizations where people just put down one word for the year that they want to kind of go back to and ground it. It doesn't mean that that's the only word that they reflect on. So I'll share some of my previous one words during the years would be in consistency based on where I was in my life, uncertainty, balance. And my word for 2026, I'll share now, as everyone else is going to start moving through it, is show up. That's my 2026 word, is to show up. So everyone has different views of what their one word might look like, or some people don't like to label a word and have that as guiding them, and that's perfectly fine, because as I said from the beginning, everybody is an expert of themselves. But when I'm in moments of, and even today, I was like, what can I offer this presentation? What can I offer Coaching Minds? And, the little gremlin starts working in your brain and the self-critic comes in, and I go back and say, just show up, right? If I show up, then the rest will follow. And that's the first action that I take. So that's what the word that I took for this year, 2026. So.
No, I love that. I love that word, that show. It's brilliant.
So
I think for me, if I was to choose one word, I think balance. I'm going for balance in 2026.
Yeah, I've had that in the past. Yeah. It's a good word to step into, right? And again, this isn't just about a job or your career or a relationship. I use this for everything. Show up for my daughter, show up for my wife, show up for my parents, show up for myself. Let's not forget that I need to show up for me as well. So there's different elements in that. So
Yeah.
So there are the two questions again, just so people are aware. This value matters to me because, and then in 2026, I'll know I'm living in this value.
Brilliant.
And then that one small action I can take this month to honor it. So that's something that you can take offline and reflect on. It doesn't have to be a month, it can be a week, it can be a year, whatever that may be. Okay, I think we can move on to our, unless there's any comments in the book, oh sorry, in the chats.
Yeah, so we've got a question coming from Rizan, and that allows me the
love it.
time. If you can answer this question while I
Yes,
pull the
let's
slides
go for
back up, that'd be great. So Rizan is saying, how do you find the balance between your low values, delegate because you don't enjoy it or time consuming, and your growth mindset? You can learn new skills.
Yeah, and that's a great question, because that's probably what popped to my mind when I first was introduced to looking at your highest values and your lowest values. And I suppose for me, again, it goes back to the word balance, but it goes back to what energizes me and what drains me. And I need to have an honest conversation with myself of, you know, do I have the expertise to be able to achieve this? Doesn't mean that I don't want to learn a new skill or grow, but I may not be in a position to like accountancy, like that somebody goes to college for 4 or 5 years, or, you know, if I want to represent myself in court, like these are all the things that other people are experts in. Same when we talk about coaching, like, you know, come to a coach so you can have a safe space that can ask you those questions that drive you and move forward. So for me, looking at your highest and lowest values is very similar to doing a mind map. To understanding what you really are energized and happy to kind of be your values and how you drive there. And the way I think of it easily is when you wake up in the morning, if somebody said to you, do you want to go for a run? And that's in your highest values, you're going to jump out of bed and go for the run with them. Well, if it's in your lowest values, you're probably just going to throw the cover over your head and say, oh, I'm not getting out of bed, right? So everyone has different drivers and different motivators. So if something is that you easily gravitate to is probably more than likely going to be one of your highest values. So today I love doing presentations. Well, somebody else, and I know, Paul, one of your books for this month was about public speaking, and may have a fear of speaking in front of people. So that's one of their lowest values, right? Doesn't mean that they can't learn that, but it's about being honest with yourself and moving into that. So that's probably a great example with the public speaking, is that you could learn that new skill, but it's about taking the time to intentionally step into it. While there's other values that you may need to delegate because it's taking energy from you.
Thank you.
I hope that answers. I hope that helps. There's no right or wrong answers, as we always say, but it just gives a bit of clarity around what that looks like. But great exercise to do online. You can, with John D. Martini, that helps with those mapping pieces.
Brilliant. Thank you for answering that. That's fantastic. And I think, to sum it up as well, also comes to, is it a want or a need? I think that plays a big part in it. Whatever the task is, sometimes we think our wants are our needs, and they're not.
Correct. That's even better. Yeah, it's a great way of doing it. So if you want to learn, you're going to put the energy, and that's where it goes back to your highest value. Because if learning is your highest value, but do you need to do it is another question. Are you doing it for the right reasons then as well? Are you doing it to save money? Are you doing it to, you know, say that I'm an expert, or I can, you know, you're not kind of looking into yourself and say that, oh, well, I don't have the answers for everything. So someone else will need to take that on.
The number of questions come through, Ed, so I don't want to move on.
I think we're near the very end then. So I don't know what's on the.
So I've just put up Joy. Sorry, Donna's there. Joy, because there's much beauty out there which is overshadowed by dark and ugly energy. People's situations all about focus. So, okay. Sorry, I accidentally clicked that there, Ed. Sorry, I was just moving.
No, you're good. Yeah, so if you want to move on to, I think one of the last slides is coming up now.
Yeah.
So it's more so about preparing for tomorrow, because I know there's some great workshops on tomorrow. So if we just move into the next slide. So today, what I'd love you to take away is that one value, that one intention, that one small aligned action. And again, I'll say not to pressure yourself, but just to ground yourself, right? And then you can multiply this and have like a set of values, 7 or 8 different values. But the one value, we just want to keep it simplistic to just to take away a learning from today. And then you can put that into your year if you need. But this is how I believe momentum is created. not through the force, but through alignment. So if you can align with who your values are, and then we talked a little bit about the highest values and the lowest values, we can start making those steps or actions. And Jane beautifully brought that up. I think one of the great questions was, I can't remember the name of the participant, but we're talking about when you have low moments and you have lots of low moments, what does that look like? And for me, it's just put one foot in front of the other and focus on that. Sometimes just look down at your foot, one in front of the other, because sometimes when you look up, there's so much happening that you may lose focus. So in those situations, I always say, just look down and one step in front of the other, and then gradually build that mindset that you're requiring to move forward into different seasons. Okay. I think we're at the end, if I rightly. Yeah, one more. I love quotes and I love all things quotation and inspirational, but this is not about doing more. So I hope that really comes across today, but it's about choosing more honestly. So this exercise in 60 minutes is just a reflection and just kind of the tip of the iceberg. You really want to take time, as we talked about, to work through these workbooks. This is a really great resource that Coach Amonts are providing, and being able to also go back into the recordings to help you to kind of figure out kind of some of the questions that you may have. But happy to answer any questions. I think the next slide is a little bit about my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to scan and connect. I love connecting with people. I do a lot of work around networking, especially with graduates, because they fear the word networking. And for me, it's just like having a human conversation. Let's remove the assumptions or the expectations away around networking. It's not about what is the outcome. It's about having a conversation with a human being. And whatever then comes from that, right? So I think that's all from my side. If there's any final questions, or Paul, if you have anything, I'm more than happy to answer before we disconnect and everyone can enjoy the rest of their Saturday and weekend.
Yeah, no, so do you have a 5 minutes to just stay around and we can open up for a little bit of
yeah. No, I'm in no rush, so if...
Excellent, we can invite some questions in if everybody does, because you've covered so much great stuff in such a short time. And as you mentioned, it's really important for people just to reflect on these questions, because these are really deep questions. As you said, it's not about doing more, it's about being honest with ourselves. And sometimes being honest with ourselves can take a little bit of deep reflection in time. So if any questions have popped up, please drop them into the comments box. And Ed, I just want to say a huge thank you to you for pulling this together. It's really wonderful, and it's really led on nicely from the other sessions that we had today. And I love, and there's comments coming into the comments box as well around how you blend your stories into the concepts and questions that you're delivering. It gives and you started off with that, which is beautiful, authentic and personal approach to what you're doing here today. So thank you for being so open and honest with us about your own personal stories and sharing all this wisdom. It's been great.
Yeah. No, I've learned this over the years that, and I think Donna mentioned it, our value isn't based off our career title. Our value is based off who we are as human beings. And I always try to bring that through. Respect the janitor as you respect the CEO, right? We respect everybody in life. So I'm glad that came across. And that's why, again, as I say, I'm in the Culture Minds community, because there's a lot of like-minded people. That also challenge as well, but help me grow and develop, which is exactly what I'm looking for. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak for over 60 minutes today. I hope somebody took something away from it. But as I said at the top of the hour, if there's anything you take away from it, and it's my word of the year, is that you've shown up. So pat yourself on the back for that. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do, is to show up into that room, virtually, physically, whatever that may be. So yeah, well done on that.
Yeah. Should we bring in the confetti and the applause again, like we did in Jane's session, just to celebrate? I'm loving it. So, pat on the back, a clap, and some confetti for showing up today. But no, Ed, the thanks has to go to yourself for pulling this together, for delivering today. And a huge thank you to everybody that's tuned in the comments box, that's engaging, that's openly shared their values, what they're working on, what's important to them, that have gone along this exercise openly in the comments box. And going back, a huge thank you to Jane for her session on mindset and getting us focused on how we rewrite our stories. And back to Patricia, Adele, and also Donna in our first session. And we do have a question coming, Ed, before we say goodbye and talk about what's coming. So it's from your co-host, Jane. She's asking, how often should one reevaluate their values?
Great question. And I personally don't think there's a time frame. I think we should every maybe 3 to 6 months step into it, but I do it every week. So I do the mirror test every week. So at the end of my working week, I will look myself in the mirror and say, have I upheld my values that I stand by? Was I compromised? And I will be compromised. But was I compromised to the point where I didn't step into what my values should be? And it's not about being critical, it's about understanding and learning from that and really understanding. And my values have changed over the years. When I first started my career, my values were very much about promotion, status, having a nice car, having money, having a house. I'm not saying they're bad values, because they're not. A lot of this is really about individually, but over the time, then that didn't give me the clarity or the purpose that I was seeking, right? It could for other people, but for me, it wasn't giving me that. And there was always something missing. And I think Patricia mentioned it. I was probably living a life that was other people's version of my life and not my life. And when I stepped into my values to understand what they are and honestly understand what they are, and you mentioned that, Paul, and that's a critical part, is that sometimes we can fool ourselves into what the way we should be working without being honest with ourselves. And I had to have an honest conversation with myself about 10 or 12 years ago. And from there, it led on to self-development, self-awareness, well, hopefully self-awareness and self-compassion. And I reevaluate my values every 3 to 6 months, or situational. You know, if I'm going for a new job, or I want to join a coaching program, I will look at their values against my values and see what works and see what doesn't.
Thank you for that, Ed. And also that beautifully knits into what Jane was sharing as well, when she was asking about the story that we created for the last year that we're telling ourselves, and where did they come from, and values probably play a huge part into to adapting that person that we're not. So, no, brilliant. There's lots of love coming in for you, Ed. Lots of thank yous coming into the session. Some Thomas saying thank you, Cindy saying thank you, Helen saying thank you, seeing great sessions. Jane, Ed, thanks for putting this together. She can't make tomorrow. And on that note, actually, Ed, if still some questions, if you want to drop them in, please do drop them in. But just to talk about tomorrow, so how this all ties in nicely to tomorrow's session. So our next session is at 10 a.m. UK time tomorrow. We're going to build upon what we've learned today. So we've talked about definitions of success, what success might look like. We've talked about how we reauthor our stories and set our mindset. Ed's just gone and helped us start to get clarity on our values and look at what's important for us in the action we're going to take with these values. And this is going to turn nicely into looking at our goals. And we're going to be stepping forward into the gold standard of success with Carly Brown, who is one of our coaching minds and a psychologist. It's going to be absolutely amazing. She's coming in with a positive psychological lens on goals. So expect more than just your standard SMART model, and a way in which you can look to build a goal based on everything we've talked today that is going to help you move through. And then we've got 2 more sessions. We've got Cindy, who's been tuned in. She's going to join us tomorrow, but I'll talk more about Cindy's after the back of Carly's session. We've also got Vijaya as well. And for anybody who's in our hub, if you are free at 7:30 p.m. UK today, taking a little bit of a different spin. So we have no more sessions, but we're going to be off session watch party on Zoom. So if you want to join us, we're going to watch the Meta Secret together. There's no camera. There's no anybody doing any events. We're going to do a watch party of a movie together that's going to be quite spiritual, but also set some good energy for the rest of the year, for your best year 2026. So bring your popcorn, your drinks, your snacks, whatever. Sit back off camera, and we just have a little bit of a discussion through the Zoom chat as well for anything that we're observing, learning, and taking away. We've done these a couple of times before, and the people have loved them. So if you're just looking for a chilled environment, you can join us to close day 1 of our online retreat. Sorry, Helen's just asking, there's a question come in, Ed. Where can we find the workbook, please? We'd love to look at it again. So I'll just put it in the comments box one more time. And it's also going to be available under all the replays that are going to be available in our hub today, with a transcript of today's session or some summary notes. So Ed, on that note, I just want to say a huge thank you. There's no more questions coming other than that one, but thank you for your time today. Thank you for putting this together.
Thank you.
Your stories and your wisdom. Really, really appreciate it. And a huge thank you to everybody that's been with us today.
No, and thank you, Paul and Coach of Minds, for creating this space, right? It's super valuable for people. So a big shout out to you and your team. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed. It means a lot. And I look forward to seeing absolutely everybody tomorrow for day 2. Thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening. and we'll see you soon. Thank you.